You got some problems that you wanna solve? Then let's chat. That job getting on your nerves? Then let's chat. Girl, you know I can relate, so let's chat. Cause I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom.
It's your girl Cece. I'm your hostess with the mostest.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line Is. And today's episode, I have my sis, Iamlaurenjay, and we are going to be talking about a topic that I think we all think about, might not say it out loud, but we can all relate. And that's in regards to setting up boundaries in your friendships and potentially moving towards friendship breakups. We talk a lot about, breakups in our relationships, dating, things like that. But I think it's also important to talk about how we, navigate our friendships, because our friendships do help to shape the type of people that we are. And I tell people all the time, it's around the end of the year and leading into the beginning of the year, you see all over Facebook or social media, people are saying, oh, I'm going through my friend list. And if I haven't talked to you, you're going to be blocked and all these things. And it's just like, why put that out there? Just do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Or at least have a courtesy conversation with the person. But nonetheless, everybody handles things a little bit different. Yeah. So without further ado, I am going to let Lauren introduce herself and tell her story.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Iamlaurenjay. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. And I want to just, bring you all into my life a little bit of, a friendship breakup that I experienced recently, of 10 plus years of a high school friend. I would say that we slowly grew apart from, life differences and the different things that we, were going through. I think that due to location, with us not living in the same area anymore, and lifestyle changes, career, different things just caused us to grow apart. And I think that it could have been handled in a better way. It sucks the way it ended, but I know that it was really for probably the best of us, both of us. It was really for the best, but I guess we'll just go into detail. So I mean, she's a high school friend, and we met our sophomore year in high school, and she was the new girl. She came in and she was the new girl, and I was kind of the new girl too. I had been at that high school for about a year before her. So I had a good understanding of the people and the environment, the vibes. So as we know how it feels to be new in an environment, I wanted her to feel welcome and feel that she had a friend. So we were able to create a friendship from just being able to relate to being new and the awkwardness of trying to get to know people. And from that, our friendship blossomed, and we had done so much together. We made a lot of memories together. We went to prom together. We even went to college tours together, dated similar friends, how that goes, just the whole nine. But once high school came to an end, we did go to different colleges. Okay. And that also, can put a strain on the friendship as well, when, we thought that we were going to go to the same college, but due to personal preference, it just didn't go that way. But we did still work on the friendship. We still communicated. We still wanted to build in the friendship and still wanted to keep a strong foundation of what we created in high school.
That's important.
But it changes. It changes. The dynamic changes because of location and things. But we still would try to hang out and link up, but it was kind of hard. It was kind of hard because as a college student, a broke college student, you're not driving, you're not, in the same environments anymore. So,
and you're developing new friends because, from high school to college, that's when you really start to learn more about who you are and, what you like, what you don't like. And you start experimenting with different things. And that's just a different dynamic, as you mentioned. So
Yeah.
sometimes, even though I'm sure you probably hung out with her like when you came home from
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So how was that when you came home?
So it was a little bit different because they were on a different side of Maryland. They were like northern Maryland, and I was in Baltimore.
Mhm.
So I actually stayed here because my mom moved here from where we used to live. She now moved here, so now it was kind of like all of my family was in this area, so I didn't really have to go back home anymore. So we really would try to hang out for like homecomings and stuff, but it actually didn't happen. We just did a lot of like virtual, like FaceTime and stuff like that. So we actually didn't really get to see each other throughout our college experience, at least like in person.
Right.
It was only until graduation is when I had probably saw her, not for the first time, but in that environment. Because she pretty much like didn't complete the full 4 years the same time as me. She actually went to pursue her associate's degree first. So then I was able to see her for like birthdays and stuff like that, and that was great. At that point in time, her and I both were dating, so we would like do double dates and stuff like that, and just catch up personally when we could. It was like one of those things with for those of you that can relate to like long distance friendships, you just try to hang out when you can. Y'all try to create a schedule, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But the intention behind it, and I think that's what kept the friendship so strong, is because we knew our intentions, and we knew that we wanted to try our best to keep the friendship strong, but we couldn't see each other as often as we like.
Now, would you say, since you mentioned the word foundation, going into college in that different type of environment, would you say that you felt your foundation was strong at that time?
We actually did go through a rough patch during that time due to some communication barriers and miscommunication. So there was about maybe 6 months or so where we weren't talking. But as we grow and as we learn to get over things and heal in our personal ways, she actually was able to reach back out to me, and we were able to talk and communicate and apologize and hash out our differences and move forward. So I can't say that the foundation was strong for that.
Because that takes a lot. I feel like sometimes we go through these rough patches and people still have some level of immaturity, if you will. And it makes it even harder. And then at the same time, frustrations grow, and that really doesn't help to try to mend things. So
I agree.
Now, when did you notice that the dynamic changed? So you mentioned, you all saw each other in person after graduation. So I assume you're probably around like 21, 22. And so it's been 4 years since that. So did you all go right back to where you left off and hanging out, or did how did that transition occur?
So a lot of the friendship kind of started to revolve around double dating. So I do think that can affect the friendship too, because you're not necessarily hanging out with just you two. You're not spending time just with you all. You're spending time with like your partners and each other. So I do think that changed the dynamic a bit, because we were in different places. Now that we were both in serious committed relationships, we wanted to be able to include our partners, but still like foster the friendship in a way. It definitely changed the dynamic for sure. And there was a desire there for me to want to spend time with her outside of that type of environment with our partners. Because as you know, you're different when you're around your partner. And you're different when it's just your girls,
Exactly.
So that changed a lot. And I noticed the change. And it was a rough, because even when we did try to hang out outside of just our partners, there was always a third party. Like another friend, a friend of a friend, that was always included. And I always wanted to just have some one-on-one time, but she really loved like pleasing others and making sure other people were included. And I do think that also caused a little bit of...
Okay, so every time you all would hang out, it was always somebody else, like a third wheel that would come. So when did you finally say like enough is enough, and how did that conversation go?
Yeah, good question. So Because the type of person my friend was or is, I tried to tiptoe with certain topics, and I would just word it in a way of like, hey, I'd love when we link the next time. It's just us, it's just me and you. We can catch up and we can hang out. But I'm not sure if that message was understood because a third party always will still be there.
Right.
So that was tough because I did try. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. I'm not really sure, but I did express like it would be great if it could just be me and you, but still there were other people that would come along.
And when you would drop those hints, I mean, what was her response?
She would just say like, oh yeah, that would be great, or that's cool, I'll let you know, or whatever. And then things would kind of like blow over, and then the next time come around. Now granted, I will say we were able to hang out once, one-on-one one time. But that was fun, that went well. But I will say I did notice a shift because the topics began to be surface level. And I'm a deep person. I like to get deep. If we're 10 plus years of friendship, I want to know about what's going on with you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I consider myself to be like a part of your family in a way. We've shared cries, we've shared laughs, we've shared our ups and our downs. So, surface level topics don't really serve me, because I believe you should be pouring into your friendships and they should be pouring into you. And how can you really pour into somebody if we're just talking about like surface level things? So I did notice a shift in conversations,
right.
And that's when I started noticing like I do think that we could be growing apart.
So on that note too, and talking about and describing yourself in a friendship, to maintain that or for that to be effective, like what type of boundaries do you set up to make sure that you are not compromising who you actually are, in a friendship, and while not being a people pleaser, quote unquote, like she was?
Yeah, that's good. So I actually asked her what her communication preferences were. Like I was trying, how you're just trying different avenues of like, how can I make this work? I really don't want to end this. I want to just try to adjust to the person and what they like or what they don't like. So I did ask like, what are your communication preferences? And they shared those with me, and it wasn't my preferences, but I believe that it's a two-way street in friendships. Right. So you have to give a little and take a little. So I did try to adjust to the communication preferences, but I also felt like there's but so much you can get from text messages.
Yeah. And text messages can always be construed sometimes, especially when you're trying to quote unquote pull your heart out. Sometimes it can be taken wrong, and that's not your intent too. So it helps to pick up the phone, but I know the generations, we don't always know to pick up the phone.
Yeah. I would encourage anyone that's out there that is in a friendship or serious friendship, like really try to talk to the person face to face, on FaceTime, like really schedule those hangouts, like really try your hardest and not let the daily hustle and bustle of life distract you from being able to still like build on that friendship, because you can easily let personal things get in the way and just be like, oh, they'll understand, but like how much understanding can somebody have,
Right. And that's why, going back to the word boundaries, I know it's a loose word that some people shy away from, but it's important to have, what you will allow and what you don't allow, because then when you feel like somebody is not into that space, then you can say, all right, well, this is not working for me. And if they're not willing to adjust, okay, then they're going to have to go stage left. So
and I do think that is a lesson that I've learned probably over the past year to two about boundaries and how important they are and how healthy they can be, because I can be very vulnerable and let that I don't think I ever had like set boundaries with friendships, being the only child before meeting you and our family. I think that I was always wanting that like sisterhood and that family. I was just like, I'll kind of do whatever, not whatever, but kind of do whatever to keep the friendship and do what I can. And I think that can be unhealthy because it causes you to like cause yourself to be strenuous in the friendship and overextend yourself,
right?
And cause yourself to be stressful, and it can become a roller coaster ride. And I think moving forward, this has helped me to set boundaries and expectations, and if they don't align with those, then maybe you have to keep them at an arm's length. That's something that I've learned is maybe I didn't have the healthiest boundaries, but at least now I know what that's going to look like for me in the future.
No, for sure. Have you ever had to downgrade a friend from, let's say, a best friend to more of an acquaintance or associate?
Yes. I think that happened in this situation. It went from like best friend, and then it started feeling like, okay, close friend, or now it's feeling like an associate. Now it's feeling like kind of like strangers in a way, because we let life get in the way sometimes.
Right.
And then the friendship starts to fall below the wayside. And then you start really evaluating things like, is it even worth it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would say my experience that I think of when I talk about a friendship breakup is, again, like we mentioned, friends, we grow up, we grow apart.
Yeah.
And mine would probably be about the same time, nearing high school. And, people are trying different things at that time. I was not into those things. And I felt like, because I didn't want to be a part of that circle, I took myself out the equation and exited stage left, and so, and, I still sometimes, feel away with it, but I don't regret the decision that I made at that time because it was healthy for me, and I didn't want to be subjected to peer pressure when it came to those type of things. And I think that's very important to mention as well. And then also, ironically, we reconnected, I guess this is now 20 plus years later.
Really?
And it's weird because we pick up right where we left off on a positive note, but I'm still learning to figure out how that communication would look like for us, because I noticed in the first meeting that we had, I initially went straight back to teenage years, like, oh, well, let's do this, let's do that. And then I had to stop myself and say, Sierra, we are not teenagers. Like, they are not into that same type of thing or feel the same way you did about certain situations many moons ago. And I had to kind of like reflect, and one of my other friends had actually told me, don't go there with any expectations. And I took heed to that, and they were right, because when you set yourself up, sometimes it's okay to have expectations, but make them realistic expectations, because if not, then they're going to keep on going about their ways, their day, and you're going to be sitting there crushed.
And
I'm like, oh.
I'm that friend. I'm that friend that like to try to, like set realistic expectations, but maybe sometimes they aren't realistic, at least for that person's lifestyle. And that then I have to, like you said, take a moment and reflect, like, oh, okay. All right, well, let's readjust. And now what does that look like for you? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But how's it going now?
That's going. I mean, this is still fresh, so we're still. I mean, they communicate well. It was 3 of us, and so I'm still trying to figure out how to be comfortable in a situation. So I'm just taking it day by day, So, but these are people I used to be on the phone with every day, all day when I got home from school. So it's definitely different. But again, I do feel like when you get older, especially if you've gone through things, we've had episodes on traumas or just other therapeutic type of episodes, and we all have a story, we all have things that we go through that shape the person that we are in the now. And sometimes people just don't fit that equation, and it's okay if they don't. You may want the friendship, but you can't force something that is really doesn't need to be, if that makes sense. So just something to think about. But so we talked a little bit about when the friendship stopped serving you spiritually, emotionally, or what have you. But did you see any other red flags besides that person bringing like a third wheel along?
I noticed that our interests also started to shift. Like, so I could relate to what you
Yeah.
were saying. There were things that they wanted to do that I no longer have a desire to do.
Right.
Or if I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be very like rare. It's gonna be gotta be a big occasion, not something that I see myself doing every weekend.
Right.
Or every month or anything like that. So I did notice the interest started to change on top of, like we talked about, the surface level conversations.
Right.
And I think the effort on both parties, because it's a two-way street. It's not either everybody holds some type of responsibility in the relationship. But I did notice that there wasn't as much as an effort to even pick up the phone.
Right.
To pick up the phone or to like follow through with the plans. There was always like kind of a reason or some type of thing that came up that caused us to not be able to hang out, and that can become exhausting.
Yeah, because you're constantly trying without even seeing a result.
Exactly.
So, same thing, I guess, for relationships. You're constantly trying. You're not seeing the fruits of your labor. So, as a result, you're just like, okay, I'm not going to keep doing this. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, how did that conversation go? Or did you have a conversation, or did you just cease communication?
So I actually took a step back. And because I'm a very active friend, like I love checking in, making sure you're good. I might even do a random phone call if I feel led to just make sure you're okay. Are you breathing? But I definitely took a step back, and they noticed. That is when the conversation began. So they noticed I took a step back. They asked questions. They were confused and, wanted to seek clarity. And I had to take a couple days. I'm becoming to be that person that likes to take a moment to reflect and make sure that when I express my feelings, it is genuine. It is not to call you out. It's not to hurt you. I just want to take the time to make sure that whatever I'm going to say is effective communication and not a reaction, So I did take a couple of days, and I responded back. And all of this was through text, which I would not recommend. Again, like I said, if you can take a moment to meet up, get on the phone, do that. But with this situation, text was like the only option at this point. So I took a moment and I responded very detailed, and I gave real life examples. I expressed like how it made me feel, because sometimes I think in friendships you don't realize like how the other person on the other end is feeling. You're thinking like, oh, everything's fine, they're not saying nothing, everything's peaches and cream, when it's really not. They actually are suffering. So I actually did take the time and express my concerns, and unfortunately I didn't hear anything back.
Oh, wow. So they didn't even have the courtesy. Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I know.
To even respond.
Yeah.
So, I guess when day 2 passed and you didn't get a response, how did you feel?
Now I was in that space of confirmation of like I made the right decision.
Okay.
And it let me know that I was right about what I thought. I felt like I no longer like knew who they were as a person. So it confirmed it, like, yeah, this is what I thought. I no longer know who they are. Because when you can't even bank on someone responding, that's when you know, like, okay, this is probably
like
done.
Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe I put too much effort in, and I was the only one feeling this type of way in that friendship.
For sure.
So
I also can say that I did learn from it. Like, okay, maybe I could have like spoke up sooner or expressed myself in a different way, or like maybe tried a little harder. Again, I do think that there's always like a lesson learned from both parties, and I always like to acknowledge what I could have done better. And I think that the main thing that I think I could take away from it is that I could have said something a bit sooner before it got to this point.
Okay.
So
no, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through it like that. I thought it was a mutual
thing.
I wasn't sure, and I never asked. So again, after not receiving that and heeding that as confirmation, did you do anything to help you heal from that loss?
Well, to be quite transparent with everyone, I'm still in the process of healing, because healing doesn't have any time frame.
True.
We always tell people that, like, don't expect when you go through any breakup, romantic or friendship or platonic, it doesn't have a time frame. You're gonna always be healing through things. So right now, I am in the process of really still reflecting and praying and taking the time to know, like, okay, what is it that I'm looking for in the next friendship when it is time. Those boundaries, being healthy, setting the expectations, realistic expectations, and giving people grace. I always need grace, and I always want to give other people grace. So right now I'm in a reflecting stage of what I can do better and what I want for myself in the future.
So what have you learned, if you don't mind sharing some of the things that you've learned in this reflective stage?
Yeah, so I've learned to not overextend myself, definitely not to overextend myself, and to be more open and honest, and not to allow, I don't want to say people to walk all over you, but basically don't allow someone to walk all over you and allow them to just think like everything's okay, and think that, like, oh, they're so understanding to the point of, like, now you're suffering. So that's one thing that I learned, to speak up more for myself. And that's something that I've been probably dealing with since a young age to an adult, is making sure that I can be an advocate for myself. So that's the biggest thing that I learned, to just continue to improve on my communication and be open and honest with people, and don't worry about always how it's going to make them feel, because that's just human for people to feel a way, whether that be good or bad.
Okay. So, going forward again and trying to attract additional friendships. I mean, of course, we know this isn't your only friend.
Yeah.
But, how is there anything that you would do differently when you are in a new environment and you are, gaining friends or potential friends, or, of course, mostly everybody that you come in contact starts off as an associate.
Yeah.
So what would make them a best friend for Lauren?
So I think them letting me know what type of friend they are. I think that would help both parties, knowing what you're getting yourself into. Sometimes, we get so excited for something new, you don't ask enough questions, or you don't take enough time to seek clarity. So I would take my time to get to know them, and also make sure that it's a good fit for me. Because I don't know if you all have been hearing about this low maintenance and high maintenance friendships thing. I have my mixed feelings about it, but I really think it all comes down to being open and honest and transparent with the person, of what type of person you are and what type of friendship you are going to be, and what you can bring to the table, so that can just lay the foundation, and the person going to assume certain things.
But how would you find that out? I mean, do you do a friendship interview? I mean,
I think that take time, as you hang out, as you get to know, as you continue to build on each link, so the first link, is just surface level, just that's just basics, going
out to a happy hour.
Yeah, you start off slow. And then I think you could build by, like, phone calls, and seeing how they are with their family, and seeing how they are in different environments, and if y'all maybe go out on a small staycation or something. You don't know until you try, and until you get to know the person. But yeah, definitely not like an interview to make it so rigid, but definitely, like, just giving it grace, because you really just don't know. But it does remind me of kind of like when you're meeting, like, if you do therapy or if you take therapy, it's kind of like that. You don't know until you try, and you have to put yourself out there if you're open to new friendships. You have to know that it may be longevity, it might not. And also prayer. Can't forget prayer. Prayer is always important. First. Yeah.
But again, I think the type of people that we are, we just go right in. At least I know. And my mother used to say to me, everybody is your best friend. Cause like I'll be like, oh, my best friend, this, my best friend that. But in actuality, I know I have, my 4 to 5 core friends that, know everything, know what I'm thinking. They can usually guess my next action type of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, when she said that back when I was younger, I was like, what? Then as I grew up, I started to think about it. I said, you do that, Sierra. Like, so that was something internally that I needed to figure out and navigate through.
Yeah.
So now, I do, again, surface level friends. Of course, I'm here if you need me. I'm always going to be that same authentic person. But at the same time, I'm always maintain and protect my peace. If the minute that my peace is disturbed, that's my boundary. Then you got to go.
Yes.
And that's something I was talking about too in therapy this week is we're working on trying to set up boundaries because I realized that I really don't have that many until I just said that one out loud. So I guess I do have one. But if somebody asks me straight out, what's my boundaries? I'll be like,
me and you have a lot in common. Like even talking about this topic, it lets me know like, wow, we're similar friends. And sounds like we both like are working on setting those boundaries and stuff because we're both people.
Yes.
You're a people person, you can relate or find ways to relate to people in any way. But to protect ourselves, we have to have those boundaries.
And I'm learning to be more assertive too in my friendships.
Yes.
Because like you said, being a people person, I feel that sometimes I don't assert myself and I do go with the flow.
Yes.
And that is a negative point that I want to try to fix. So
that part.
That
part I can relate to that
so
heavily.
Work on that.
Yeah.
Put it in the chat. We're gonna have to follow up and have a follow-up session to talk about it. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna have to do friendship therapy together. Okay. Well, is there anything else as we close that you want to say about the situation or would advise other people that may be going through breakups? Because I know when I told people that we were going to be, recording, a lot of people that I said that to, they were like, yeah, I recently went through a friendship breakup, or I think I might have to go through one soon.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say, take your time, because that's what I did. I took my time to make sure this is really what I wanted. Because sometimes, as we all know, like emotions, they come and go. One minute you're sad, one minute you're mad, one minute you're happy, one minute you're excited, and set those emotions to the side and find out what the trend is. And then once you figure out the trend and if it really makes sense for you, just like Sierra said, protecting your peace, that's the most important. And if it's really like affecting your peace, then okay, something's got to give. So I would say take your time to reflect, make sure this is really something you want to do, and then stand on it. Just like they say, stand on business, stand on it.
Yes.
And then be okay with it and know that you're going to go through your grieving process, but it's normal and we all are going to experience it.
Yeah. And that's the episode I had too in the last season. Because automatically when people think of grieving, they just think of the loss of a loved one. But you can grieve your old life. You can grieve a friendship. You can grieve anything that is a reflection of what you used to have. So just keep that in mind. So, with that, I'll say that the bottom line is you have to, take that moment to reflect and do that self-assessment and find out sometimes if things are good for you. Is it encouraging you? Is it making you a better person? And that's the same type of qualities to think about in even a relationship of any kind, essentially. So allow yourself that grace to do so. And it seems like allowing grace is like the trend of this season in my episodes. I don't know what it is, but I keep saying that. So, but it's a fact. It really is a fact. So if they want to continue to know more about you, as you said, this is still a fresh journey for you. We'll have to have you come back on in the live to kind of give us an update too.
Yes, I'd love to come back.
How should they reach you?
So they can reach me on Instagram under Iamlaurenjay, spelled just like that. Lauren, Laurenjay. And I would love to talk. You can reach me through direct message. My page is open, and it's I'm open to anybody feedback.
She's an open book.
For sure.
And her handle is listed below, so make sure that you follow her as she goes through her journey. And she has some lovely Get Ready With Me videos. She's also a content creator, so I'm gonna boost her up because she ain't boost herself up. So But with
Thank
that, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share. And we will see you on another episode of The Bottom Line Is.